Is Iowa State a dark horse in the Big 12 in 2024? They might just be. This is a team that has a lot coming back this year and should be pretty good. Before we go into the game-by-game predictions, just some thoughts on this team. You look at the offense, and Rocco Becht returns at quarterback. Really, the offense overall returns a lot. I mean, they're really loaded on that side of the ball. I love the wide receiver group here at Iowa State. This is one of the more talented offenses that Iowa State has had maybe ever under Matt Campbell. So I think the offense is going to be good, and the defense should be solid as well. Defensive line should be good. Secondary should be good. Love the safeties. And if there is a weakness, maybe it's the linebacker spot. That's one area where they could be a little bit better. But overall, Iowa State, I don't think they're getting talked about enough as potentially a contender in the Big 12. I think this team's very similar to Kansas State. Remember, they beat Kansas State last year. And you look at the two rosters and what they had coming back, I think Iowa State and Kansas State are pretty even this year. I know everyone's talking about Kansas State, and a lot of people have them as the favorites in the Big 12. But if you think that, then I think Iowa State's definitely in that conversation as well. The problem for the Cyclones could be the schedule. They've got a pretty tough schedule, and here it is. You see they, of course, have to play Iowa in the non-conference, and they play some of the better teams out of the Big 12. They play West Virginia. They play UCF. They play Texas Tech. They play Kansas. They play Utah. They play Kansas State. It is a grind in the Big 12, and I think that's going to make it tough for this team. Vegas has the over-under win total at 7.5. I think that's pretty fair. When I was doing I always do these graphics, and I go look up the over-under, and I actually typed in 7.5 before I even looked it up because I was pretty certain that's what it would be. That just feels about right for this team and this schedule. But yeah, 7-5, 8-4, the most likely records for this team. I think they get off to a good start here. Should beat North Dakota, no problem. This Iowa game is tricky. You look at the two teams, I don't think that Iowa is significantly better. I think they're fairly even. I think Iowa State's got an advantage on offense, and Iowa's got an advantage on defense. It's one that when I was making my predictions, if you've watched the videos, you already know I did pick Iowa to win this game, and I felt pretty confident at that time. But the more I look at Iowa State, I think they've got a shot to go on the road and pull off an upset here, but we've got to stick with our original prediction. Going to go with Iowa. Again, could be a close game, or should be, I think, a very close game, and could potentially be one that Iowa State could pull off an upset in. You got Arkansas State next. Not a bad Group of 5 team, but Iowa State should be able to take care of business there. So a 2-1 record before going on the road to play Houston. This is a Houston team that I also think is being a little bit underrated. I think this will be a tough matchup for Iowa State. There is still a good bit of talent on this Houston team. They've got a great coach now. And so I think this was a tough one. And really, I'm going to go win, but I think between the Iowa and Houston games, Iowa State probably splits those. So if they go on the road and they beat Iowa, I could then see them maybe losing to Houston. But either way, I think they win one, lose one, and I think they will be 3-1 before playing Baylor on October 5th. At home, Iowa State's a better team. They're playing at home. Really no reason to pick against them. Got to go Cyclones here. Next game is West Virginia on the road, October 12th. Another very, very tough one to predict. West Virginia going to be ground and pound. Good defense. We know what we're going to get from them. Garrett Green, as a dual threat quarterback, could cause some problems for this Iowa State defense, especially if linebacker is a weakness for them. And just that run game overall for West Virginia, I think that could be a problem for the Iowa State defense. And then Iowa State's offense, can they score enough against a very good West Virginia defense? The game is on the road. It's just tough for me to go with Iowa State here. I've got to go with the home team, going West Virginia, and Iowa State then drops to 4-2. They play UCF next. This is going to be a tough one. It's going to be tough to defend this offense. So UCF has a lot of weapons coming back. KJ Jefferson in there at quarterback. We'll see what he can do in this Gus Malzahn offense. I think it's going to be tough to stop. I think there are areas of this UCF defense that are going to be really good as well. So I think UCF pulls off a win here. I think after a tough physical game at West Virginia, Iowa State falls in the next week against UCF. But definitely a game they could win. Texas Tech is next. Luckily, they get a bye week before this game. That's why I'm going to say they beat Texas Tech. If you flip these games, you put Texas Tech after West Virginia and UCF after the bye week, I would say Iowa State would then lose to Texas Tech and beat UCF. So it's really just the way the schedule falls. Both of these games are going to be great matchups, pretty even. Similar teams, UCF and Texas Tech. So I see Iowa State splitting those two games, and it just makes more sense to lose after a tough road game and win the game after the bye week. That's why I'm going with that. Next, we got Kansas on November 9th on the road. Tough offense to stop, a lot of weapons. Kansas won the game last year. This time it's at Kansas. I got to go with the Jayhawks here. If Jalen Daniels is healthy, I think Kansas is going to be a very dangerous team. If he gets injured again, though, I'd switch my pick to Iowa State, and that's why it's crazy to make predictions this far out. But it's fun to do in the offseason. Anyways, we go to Cincinnati next. It says 4. I think it's going to be the worst team in the Big 12. Their defense is just going to be bad. I think Iowa State is able to do whatever they want. They might put up 50 points in this game, and they'll beat Cincinnati. Utah next on the road. Tough place to play. Similar to the West Virginia game, it's going to be a physical matchup. I think Utah's got an advantage at the line of scrimmage. Their run game is going to be tough to stop. If Cam Rising can stay healthy, I think that's just going to make this team even tougher to beat. So I've got to go Utah here at home, and they'll close things out with Kansas State. Talked about this a second ago. They beat Kansas State last year on the road. They get them at home this year. I think the teams are pretty even. I do not see Kansas State being a lot better than Iowa State. They're very similar teams. They're built in a similar way. I like Iowa State at home. I think they win again this year, and they finish 7-5. That seems kind of low, though, honestly. When you look at this team, you look at this roster, you would think, this is probably at least an 8-4 team, but this schedule's pretty tough, and if we could flip one game around, maybe it's the UCF game, get them to 8-4, but like I said, they could lose on the road to Houston, they could lose to Texas Tech, they could lose to Kansas State, so I think 7-5, a pretty fair prediction. What is your prediction for Iowa State? Let me know down in the comments below.